Welcome to another weekly episode of Account-Based Friday. We've got a special guest today from Chicago joining us, Randy Likas, who is the head of North America GDM for Nectar. We're going to give a description in a moment, but first we start off with kind of the administrivia. Meg, my co-host, and I have been doing these for a couple years now. Same time every Friday. We've got different guests talking about go-to-market strategies. In the upper corner, you'll see, and depending on how my LinkedIn is mirrored here, it might be in this corner, it might be in this corner, depending on the mirroring. There's a QR code that'll bring you right to those videos of best practices around go-to-market strategies, AI, ABM, ABX, demand generation, sales operations, revenue. There's all sorts of go-to-market strategy videos there. If you have a specific question, you have the option to either ask Meg or I if there's a video that addresses your question, or if you've got a question today, you could certainly drop in a comment below. We're going to be talking about buyers committees, but we're going to shake things up a little bit this week. Normally, we start off with a weekly poll, and this week we decided not to do the weekly poll because I just came out of a conference, a B2B MX conference, and in that conference, I was moderating a roundtable of chief revenue officers. And although I've not seen this statistic published yet, there seemed to be a common theme of, wow, net new meetings are down anywhere from 30 to 50% year over year. And a lot of companies have spent a lot on technology, and there's a frustration of, why aren't we getting some of these meetings scheduled? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to invite Meg maybe first to offer a point of view, and then we'll have Randy, who's got some expertise in this area, will also share a point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I think this is definitely not the easiest time for a lot of businesses, and I think that they are thinking incredibly carefully about any new budget requests. And I think any budget request is being put under a ton of scrutiny. I'm hearing about a lot of finance teams getting involved, and being, pretty aggressive about saying, is this something we really need to do? And what is the ROI that we're going to get from this investment? And I think, no surprise, those of us that are in the business of trying to get those meetings and trying to get those deals closed don't love to hear that. But what it really does to me is raises the bar on the way that we need to talk about our solutions and how, we will lead our customers to get the impact that, we're promising, and being very transparent about how that's going to happen. Otherwise, you're just not going to get the funding. But Randy, I'm curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me today. I've been looking forward to having this conversation. It's really interesting, John, that those meetings, it's actually, higher than what I would have imagined. I think what that's a result of is really the aftermath of just a lot of really bad behavior, right? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, there's been so much bad in volume emails that have been targeted that aren't relevant to people. People are just, we all see it, right? We probably get 20 emails a day that just scream like mass automation, and then people are also not picking up their phone, right? They're seeing that the number that they don't recognize, and it's just harder to get people. And I think we're kind of at this perfect storm right now where, a lot of that bad behavior that, primarily was driven, I think, from a lot of the sales engagement platforms that were used the wrong way and, kind of used as spam cannons. And, Mark Costo, who's the first employee over at Outreach, he's since gone, but he grew that company to about $250 million in sales, came out this new term, and he's calling it the Great Ignore. And, the great ignore is kind of what I just described, which is like, it's just people are not responding back, and they're not even paying attention, right, to the communications. And so I think that's, that's a big part of what we're seeing is for sort of the outcomes here is no new meetings, because it's just really hard to get people's attention and to pay attention and to reply back to us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would agree with you. The great ignore is probably in full effect here. And I probably should give some background too. I think we originally connected after we recently had the CEO of Lean Data as one of our guests on this episode. And it was either him or somebody in Lean Data said, hey, you really ought to talk to Randy about buyers groups. And there's a big pivot now to buyers groups. So maybe with this backdrop of it's really challenging to get the meetings, maybe you could explain, what does Nectar do, and like what trends are you seeing within buyer groups that might address kind of this issue of known, challenging times getting the meetings.
Yeah. So there's a lot of conversation that's taking place now. I think as a direct result of these meetings being down, people are really leaning into intent and signals, right? And if they've got an ABM program that they're running right now, I think they're looking at ways that they might evolve that to support buying groups. And so there's a lot of people kind of paying attention to intent and signals. There's also Forrester research for quite a long time. Terry and Amy and the team have been talking about how the MQL, right, is just not as effective any longer. Buying decisions have changed, and so they've been promoting the revenue waterfall and how buying groups should be like sort of the new way of working. And I think it's been they've been promoting it for a while now. I was at the Forrester event in May, and I was there a year before. And what shocked me is the amount of people that were like at their sessions. Like it was standing room only, and I think what's happening is a few things. People are really starting to sort of lean into this and say, the traditional playbooks aren't working. Cost of MQL is going up, quality is going down, conversion rates are down. So like, what's happening? And then at the same time, there's some really the early adopters of the buying groups, right? So Palo, Alto networks, Nvidia, Pure Storage, Siemens, they've all been kind of running pilots and getting incredible results. And they're making their way now into the conference circuits, and they're kind of sharing these results of their pilots. And so that's why people are really kind of leaning into this. What we're seeing though is that most of the people most of the conversation is taking place at top of funnel. Right. So how do we pay attention to these signals? How do we pay attention to these intent and the website visitors? And that's really important, 100%. We feel that there's a bit of a miss though, and an opportunity. And that is that there are a lot of signals that exist from all of your historical opportunities and engagement that your sales reps have had, right? But they're locked up, right? And the reason why they're locked up, every single sales rep I know hates to do the manual work of updating CRM, right? It doesn't. So they may have a meeting, qualify the meeting, create an opportunity. The validation rule was I had to create one person on the opportunity, and then as they start working that deal, and more people are coming into meetings and being copied on emails, none of that ever gets captured, right? So so as a result of that. When you look at, if a marketer wants to say, hey, who have we been talking to? And they go back to the opportunity record in Salesforce, they don't know who those people are, right? And a lot of times they don't even exist in CRM. So what we do is we actually harvest all that stuff out, right? So we harvest all the contact activity, participation data, right? So it's not just like people are being invited to meetings, but are they actually showing up and participating? So we're harvesting all that stuff out. And what we're doing uniquely is we're helping. Once we unlock that, we're also saying, okay, what is it about all this engagement, right? That people are going back and forth with the reps on. Were they part of opportunities, right? Previous historical close won, close lost, current deals. Like let's make sure that we can get these people on the opportunity record itself, right? So if they exist in CRM, great. If they don't exist in CRM, we'll create their contact record. But we want to get them on the opportunity record, and then. We're doing some unique things around buyer contact role, right? The OCR. And so based on personas, right, of organizations, what their buying committees kind of look like, we're mapping, title, seniority, and then that prior engagement to help identify that buyer contact role and putting that on the opportunity. And we believe that when you can do that, like that's going to really help companies operationalize the buying group motion. So think of it like now, if I have an early stage, opportunity container, to use Forrester's words, that I'm moving this motion, in addition to all of the signals and and visitors I'm getting at top of funnel, wouldn't it be great if I also have access to all of those previous stakeholders and the role that they played, right? And now that I've identified them, populating them on those early opportunities, again, with the engagement data backed up to help move in this motion.
I think you've just brought up a really important thing that's changed, I would say, since the concept of the buying group was first introduced. And I agree, Terry and many of the folks at Forrester, my former teammates, are doing a bang up job helping people really understand and embrace it. But I think the problem was what you said, right? Which is nobody's going to go in there and willingly put in all of the contact roles, even if it doesn't take that long to do that across, I don't know, say you've got 20 open opportunities.
Yeah.
That's going to be something no one's going to do. Now, I think what we're seeing is the technology is caught up with the opportunity, essentially, and it makes it so much easier to be capturing the things that are happening without burdening the sales rep to have to do it manually. And I think that to me is going to be the game changer in a lot of ways for buying groups. What are you seeing in terms of companies who are adopting this approach? And I'm thinking about it from the perspective of operationalizing, right? What are they having to teach their reps to do differently once they have this data?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So let me address the sort of the technology piece for a moment. So you're right. There's a lot of sales tech out there that's helping capture a lot of this. There is a little unknown fact though, and I think maybe a misconception that a lot of the tech that's out there is capturing this information, but they're actually not truly writing these people back to Salesforce. They're keeping it contained within their own interface and applying a lot of their own logic to give deal signals and things like that. And so there are other companies other than Nectar that can do this, a few. But I think a lot of the tech right now hasn't sort of made that final connection back into writing that contact role in Salesforce. And the reason why that's a challenge is a few. One is most marketers don't have access to those systems, right? It's a sales platform, and so I'm still going to be going back to Salesforce. And although I might have 5 or 6 buying committee members in my other sales tech, it doesn't help me when I try to retarget, right? When I want to go do that. And so that's people are starting to discover that. And then to go back to your second question in terms of teaching sellers. Look, the whole idea of buying groups is not new to a seller, right? It's multi-threading, right? And multi-threading, we've known for a long time that that's really important. It helps strengthen our deal. So it makes a lot of sense to, I think, sales, the idea. I think where it gets a little complicated and where maybe we have to sort of start coaching sellers is that, what's that new partnership? If we're going to go to a move to a buying group motion, we need to, sort of culturally in an organization, like marketing and sales need to come together, right? It shouldn't be marketing sourced and sales sourced. It should just be source pipeline, right? There needs to be a greater partnership between marketing and sales. There also needs to be, I think, a bit of a change. And look, this stuff is hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but a lot of times, historically, an SDR might work an opportunity, pass it over to sales, sales accepted lead. It's my opportunity now. I don't want you touching it any longer, right? I'm going to run this moving forward, and that's not really going to work that great in a buying group motion either. Like the whole idea is, if we come together and we're aligned, we should be able to help you identify the missing buying group committee members, or how can we, as you're working a deal and getting closer, maybe mid funnel or bottom of the funnel, right? If we really understand the personas of the buying committee, how can we as a marketing organization help support you with content that's going to help move it forward? And so I think it's a bit of an at an executive level, we got to get all of our go-to-market functions aligned, right? And then once we're able to do that, then it's sort of retraining, kind of how we're going to be selling, together.
Yeah, you read my mind about the question that I was going to ask right toward the end. There was around, once you get this information, once you get the contact roles established in Salesforce, there could be a number of different benefits from a sales and marketing perspective. Sales wise, you could see, like you said, who is on that buying committee. marketing wise, the contact role is really the connective tissue between the campaigns object and the opportunity. So if you do the analysis, especially with AI, you can start doing some correlation around what that connection is in terms of the campaigning to that specific person, what's effective, what's not. I guess what I was heading down the path potentially going to ask is, okay, once you get that information in the system, then what? Like, what do you do to action that? Or like if there was a tip for either sales or marketing, and I think you kind of addressed some of that at the end of your explanation there, but maybe just double clicking into the, okay, we got that information in the system, then what do I do with it if I'm either in sales or marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked, because there's a lot of different plays that can be run once we have it, right? So think about from marketing perspective first, right? I want to retarget people that have been part of previous engagements, put them into nurturing campaigns. Sales and marketing, like think about the win-loss analysis, right? So now that I have the data, let me go back and let me take a look at all my closed won opportunities and understand by persona, by role, at what point did different people get engaged? How often were they engaged? Did and then look for patterns. Basically, look across all your closed won opportunities and look for patterns around that type of engagement. Do a similar exercise with closed lost, right? Were there personas that were missing? Was there engagement that was missing? Look for the anomalies there, and then once you've kind of done that, now go layer that on top of your existing opportunities and say, you know what? You got a deal right now that's scheduled to close in 30 days. And we know that, it takes 45 days to get through security and legal, right? We haven't engaged with that procurement person yet, right? So perhaps we need to go out and get that person, or maybe we need to push the close date out, right? So that's going to help, I think, with some forecasting accuracy. But even before that, like we're going to see, look at like, let's say the economic sponsor, like maybe the economic buyer comes in, maybe that third, fourth meeting, just to sort of understand, what their team has been doing as part of the evaluation. They're going to check in and then they're going to go away, right? And the team's going to kind of run it. Well, what happens is as you get closer to like the business case justification where you really want that person in, what if they're skipping those meetings, right? Or what if we don't have that person identified? And so we can coach, for active pipe, we can coach reps in terms of like, here's the missing personas. We know from closed lost or from closed won, we need to get them involved. And so there's things you can do in that regards as well. And then there's also there's a post sales example use case here too, which is think about the way that exists today, right? Sales reps are not updating the context. Deal closes. There's typically a meeting that happens with the sales rep and the delivery team, which says, okay, let me download you on everything that happened. And it's everything that's kind of in my mind. Maybe it's my account plan, whatever it might be. But as a CSM is trying to deliver value to my client, a lot of times what happens is the people that made those decisions to buy that technology, they go away. And the administration of that platform is typically somebody a little bit lower. So as we get closer to like value delivery, how do I make sure I get those people engaged again if I don't know who they are, right? Or same thing with an expansion motion. If we're trying to expand products, we're not going to expand probably with the administrators, right? We need to get those other stakeholders involved. What's the type of, if we look at our past expansion opportunities, like at what stage do we get them involved? Do we, is it the EBR, or are they skipping EBRs? And so like, that's not working. And so, I think you have to look at like, what's the quality of the meeting that's taking place, right? Because a lot of times CSMs might have like a weekly or a bi-weekly cadence with that person, right? They're reporting the news that here's product usage, here's adoption. Like senior stakeholders aren't attending those meetings. So we need to start thinking about a renewal committee or an expansion committee to say, what's the type of meeting that we can drive so we can get higher in the organization, so we can ensure that our renewals are safe, that we can get better access to the people who are making the decisions on the expansions.
Yeah, I think that's a really important use case that you just brought up, because I think, given what we opened the discussion with around people not being able to get those new meetings, well, then what's your choice? Your choice is to say, I better hold on to the people I have, which was your use case around the download of information to the customer success team or whoever's picking up the account. And it's on expansion with the people who already know and trust you. And I think that is way underutilized in terms of the focus of most marketing teams. And I think it's also a very dangerous lack of focus. What do you think would have to look different for more marketing teams to embrace the post-sale kind of retention and expansion motion versus the top of funnel?
That's a really good question. Look, revenue is revenue, right? And we know how hard it is, to the earlier point of 30 to 50% of net new meetings are down. It's hard to develop new business right now. We really need to invest in our existing customers and in those relationships to find that revenue, right? So we really got to sort of double down. And then, a lot of look, there's a lot of different types of companies, but think of the companies that maybe are sold an initial point solution in, right? And their competitors sold point solutions. But as they've expanded their product set and they built sort of these platforms, they may need to get out to new stakeholders that they don't know, right? It's a different set of stakeholders. I'll just use like the security group, right? So security might be developers. So you might have a development solution sold to application developers, VP of application development. But now you've got like DevOps and SecOps, right? Security operations. And you're trying to go displace maybe a competitor that has that point solution to your platform. We might not know who those people are. So again, let's kind of go back to like what we know is working in terms of getting those people engaged and mapping our playbooks so that we can start doing that. And so I think, to go back to your question, like I think we just have to look at the if you think of the bow tie, right? The post sales part of the bow tie. That's just as important as net new meetings right now to help hit our numbers.
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point that was debated this past week at B2BMX too, about where do you really focus right now? Is it the net new meetings, which are so hard to get on net new logo acquisition, or the cross-sell, upsell, renewal? Like a lot of companies, there was a lot of variety depending on who you were asking for, and that pendulum could be swinging in a bunch of different directions. Some company, they're all in on the renewals and upsell, and they're ignoring the growth. And I think we saw a lot of that in 2020, at the earlier part of 2024. A lot of companies, the pendulum's starting to swing back to growth now, where they're contemplating, okay, how do I grow but not make any investments in growing? So it's a really tough proposition, right? Like the boards are coming through and saying grow at 20%, but increase sales and marketing by 1.5%. So sales and marketers are now holding this bag, trying to figure out how the heck am I going to go do that? I don't know if there's a question here wrapped into that, but it based on what you said, it sounds like you kind of level out the playing field, or you could spread your bets, whether your growth or your renewal and retention. You're advocating, hey, maybe you spread your bets, and your technology could kind of harvest on both sides of that bow tie, is kind of what I'm hearing.
That's correct.
That's a really intriguing thought process. And just for clarification, because you're in a quote unquote AI company, is there any AI coming out of Salesforce, or is it more of the AI looking into the existing systems and bringing it into Salesforce for then you to do the correlation and understanding with? Just is it one way, or is it a bi-directional? Like, how do you guys kind of view that world of AI?
So we think of AI sort of two ways. The first thing is there's tons of excitement about AI, and everybody's really leaning in. I mean, that's probably the most popular topic in any board meeting is, what are we doing with AI? AI is only as good as the data that it's built off of, right? And so philosophically, what we believe and kind of what we're trying to do is make sure that we are unlocking all this data to give you the most accurate, complete, and I guess high fidelity CRM data. Once you have that, then I think you can build your AI applications, because it's, that again, that's kind of what it's built off of. Our particular product itself, where sort of AI comes in at the moment, is in a lot of that, what I talked about with the buyer contact role. So when we look at like the persona of the different personas of our buying committees, let's say a vice president of sales is a decision maker, maybe not an economic buyer, right? Because it's going higher. So there's a lot of different variations of it could be VP of sales, it could be head of sales, it could be head of sales in North America, head of growth. And so where our AI is kind of on that buyer contact role, doing that normalization of the titles, and then then looking at kind of the seniority, that's kind of where we're big in. I think where longer term, where we're going to be going though, is once you have the data in the system, now how can we query it to help us get insights or answer different questions, right? So rather than have a field that looks across data to say to answer a question, you might be able to just say, hey, how many of my current deals do I have closed over the next quarter where the economic buyer has not been identified yet, right? And it's going to sort of, the Gen AI is going to give you that. That's kind of where we're heading, I think, and I think we're going to ultimately drive a lot more value, which is, the ability for us not to rely on dashboards and reports and things like that, but to sort of ad hoc query the data and get our answers.
Yeah, I love that you can bring so much more transparency and I think accuracy to the understanding of where a deal really is, and who should be in it at what point. I think that's, and as you said, not just at the top of the funnel, but throughout that buyer's journey and long into the customer life cycle, when a lot of decisions get made. And to your point, a lot of people need to be part of them, and you need to understand who they are and what they're thinking about. I think it's a really, really smart way to look at the treasure trove of data that most companies have and can't get to.
It's a huge opportunity. It's like picking for gold, right? It's there. You just got to get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. And I think also giving people some really good food for thought on the data that they have already that could be the key to really making sure the next quarter looks better than the last one.
Yeah. And like, look, we are getting more and more interest as we partner up with other companies like Lean Data, who's really leaning into this motion as well, and sort of balancing that conversation. I think that if I sort of net it all out, it's historically getting to that OCR on the opportunity has been a challenge, right? If we can solve that, then it opens up the door for so many different things, right? And the one use case that we didn't talk about, which is also think about like from a customer marketing perspective, right? Yeah. Once they actually sign up and we want to do better customer marketing, by having those folks identified, it allows us to make sure that our programs are more effective, where the messages are getting to the right people, right? And we can measure against that.
I love it. Customer marketing is my love language. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. The other thing I would mention, and this just reminds me of a conversation I had about a month ago with somebody where it was a VP of growth marketing. She's like, my struggle right now is I can't prove, I can't do my marketing attribution reporting the way that I want to do it, because all of the things that I'm doing right now, I don't know where, where it's making impact. But if what you're saying is now you can unlock all that and attach them to the opportunity, I can start drawing the line to, some of the work that we did and where it's showing up. And so it also, it plays a role in helping with attribution as well.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're talking about is the key to moving past the MQL, right? It's sort of freeing us from the tyranny of the MQL, because right now that is the only measure most marketers have that holds any water with the board, with, the rest of the C-suite, because it feels more tangible and it feels more legit.
Yeah.
As you start to have more sophisticated understanding of what's really happening and all of the people involved in your buyer's journey and all of the things that they're doing to engage with your business, and you can prove it and show it in a way that's not a nightmare to present, that's what we've got to get to the next phase of what, B2B go-to-market's going to look like. But it's not an easy change. So thanks for being part of the solution.
Well, and I also think, like, look, this is I'm borrowing this research from Forrester and Evan over at Lean Data, which is the problem is it's cultural, right? Like culturally, we're addicted to this MQL. It's the metric that we've always used, and it's such a hard moving to this motion is as much a change management issue as it is a technology issue, right? So we've got to reset expectations and all that. I think there's two things that are going to help drive that and move that forward. One is what I mentioned before, which are these companies who have done these early pilots and getting tremendous results in terms of improved conversion, higher win rates, right? But the other thing is we are not able to hit our numbers because net new meetings are down 50%. What's the problem, right? People are going to start leaning into that and what's going on, and the existing the existing process, the existing ways we're doing it, not working. We got to start doing some things different. I think that's going to help drive some of the change as well.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right there. And just keeping an eye on time here, I think we're right at time. But to wrap up, I think what you said there about the meetings being down so sharply and the pressure that a lot of these companies are being asked to grow, like we're going in opposite directions. So something has to give there, and running the same play is probably not going to be the solution. So, solutions like yours certainly are eye-opening because it could really help get a lot of that intelligence out onto Salesforce or the system of record. Was there any closing thoughts, Meg, on your side?
No, I think I'm excited that we're continuing to carry forward this buying group discussion and making it, that much easier for companies to adopt what is clearly the right solution. So thank you, Randy, for joining us today and for sharing what you're seeing too.
It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Randy, definitely appreciate it. And next Friday, we've got a special guest. We're going to be talking about customer acquisition costs, Meg. Is that
yes,
correct?
Something near and dear to everyone's heart in B2B, customer acquisition cost. I'm really excited to welcome Ian Holmes, who's recently founded a super interesting company called CAC Market. And he comes from a finance perspective. So we're going to take everybody to school on what CAC is, what it isn't, how to calculate it, and a whole bunch of other suggestions that I think are going to be really helpful for go-to-market leaders to really think in a sophisticated way about how to understand what it costs to acquire a customer.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Randy, and we'll see you next week, same time.
Yeah, sounds great. Have a good weekend.
Happy Friday.